Hello everyone and welcome to game 2 in the series between Polt and Stephano. Polt spawning as the red Terran player on the bottom left hand side of the map, meanwhile Stephano spawning as the red Zerg on the top right hand side of the map. Red versus blue, Terran versus Zerg. And we'll see what will go down in this series and in this matchup. Now, Stephano in game 1 was able to get up onto 3 bases relatively quickly. And with being able to set up on 3 bases relatively quickly, he was able to get a nice, strong economic lead early on in the game. Even though he was behind in terms of his overall army for much of the game, he was able to eventually trade very well. I gotta believe and I gotta say that the Infestors were the critical unit, being able to exchange energy for units and also slow down that Marine push. We'll see what's gonna happen now as Stephano is spawning on only a two-player spawning map, so both players already know where the other is. And based upon the walking distance and the layout, it may be a little bit more difficult for Stephano to establish this third, since it is so widely exposed and on low ground as well. Stephano perhaps looking to once again go into that 15 or 16 hatchery opening. So far, Polt, I don't know what he's going for. He has not established a gas as of yet. So I don't know. Nope, he has established a gas. Going for that 13 gas. Should follow it up with a factory after a supply depot. And then perhaps do a little bit of Hellion harassment. The Hellion harassment might be a little bit more effective as there is 2 ramps leading into the main base here. So the spine crawler will perhaps have to be positioned over here. And that means that the Hellions, if they can at least control the creep here, have a little bit more room to maneuver than, say, on Antigua Shipyard. Drone now still wandering around, upgrading to an orbital command. So far, Polt has not deviated from his previous build, even though that build did not work out all too well. Stephano opting to go for a spawning pool without a gas, and we'll see if that's going to be the case. If he does go gasless early on, nope, he is going to once again use that same strategy against Polt, getting the gas up. He should be able to train up 2 queens and then a 3rd queen off at this hatchery here once more, like we saw in game 1, and hold off a lot of that Hellion harassment. Marines once again being trained. There is 1 Marine out here. An SCV may look to try to establish up a bunker, and if it does try to establish up a bunker, perhaps will be off over here. Yes, setting the bunker here. A drone now has made its way over, and the spawning pool is not yet, or has just been completed. 1 queen is now out. Drones now making its way as the drones are now trying to get some damage onto the SCV. The SCV now gonna look to perhaps repair and continue to build this bunker, as the Marines still causing a bit of problem. This 1 SCV, looks like it at 10 hit points will be able to escape, as we now see more and more Zerglings being added to the group. There are currently 2 Marines here. The Marines need to fend off that Zergling. The Zergling, 1 Zergling gets taken out, 2 Zerglings get taken out, but this is not going to be a good trade. Polt still trying to, is he going to be able to finish off that drone? Yes, able to get a drone there. Total losses, 106 versus 225. A little bit harder for Polt, but then again, Polt was not that successful in his previous harassment either. You can see the 3rd queen, I believe that is the 3rd queen. No, the 2nd queen now being trained. Stephano going to be able to hit some key injects once more, and a 3rd queen may be added. Spine crawler needs to be built as well, as we are now going into Overlords and Metabolic Boost. Command Center is already being built by Polt. You can also see a Tech Lab being added by Polt. So Polt may transition back into Terran bioplay after 6 to 8 Hellions. Roaches of Stephano will be able to deal a lot of damage to those Hellions, especially now with that range of 4 compared to a range of 5. Hellions have a very difficult time since they tend to take a while to stop before they finally shoot. Hellion still looking around, looking to perhaps finish off one of those Zerglings. Zergling getting taken out very, very easily, as now the Queen trying to absorb some of the damage and make sure that the Hellions don't do any true damage onto this mineral line. 40 food versus 48. Another round of roaches now coming in as the Hellions now trying to battle this up. Those roaches are going to be a great counter to these Hellions, but especially with 8 roaches, it's really going to pretty much stop this harassment in its tracks. The problem is still going to be the fact that roaches, once they are just sitting inside your base because your opponent is no longer able to attack, don't do anything for you. Stephano now macroing up and perhaps going to do a little bit of a 2-base timing. Roaches still wandering around here. The Hellions spot all of these roaches. Zerglings now looking to test that front door, and they're going to see that no expansion has been built as of yet. So it is going to be a 2-base versus a 1-base. A nice starburst of fire coming in from those Hellions. Roaches now trying to push their way in once more, and the Hellions going to be able to deal a lot of damage to these Zerglings. Zerglings now running off to the north, able to hide inside their main base. Roaches and Zerglings now continuing this push, going to perhaps hide down over here. I believe the factory does spot those groups of Zerglings, and yes, does spot it a little bit. Hellions still testing the front door here. Stephano in a bit of trouble. His army is split, even though he does have the slight food advantage. He has to be very careful. May end up losing a queen. Roaches now ready to go on the front door. Gonna deal some damage over here. It looks like the Zerglings and the Roaches on both sides are just simply pushing their way in. The supply depot down to his 440 hit points. 10 hit points. It does go down. And now the SCVs are tanking a lot of that damage. Meanwhile, back over here, Hellions getting easily killing many of these drones. All those Hellions are lined up, or all those drones are lined up, but they get cleaned up. Back over here, the Roaches are now still mounting a strong counterattack, but both sides looking to deal with this harassment. And now Polt going into double medevac play with that starport. He needs to set up this orbital command and also get more gas, otherwise he is not going to be able to train nearly enough units. Zerglings still wandering around. We have the 3rd hatchery of Stephano now being completed. Drones will transfer their way down as we're looking at a group of Zerglings. Zerglings are not going to be able to really get that much damage in. Polt most likely going to build a front wall of supply depots, and this will pretty much prevent any serious run-bys for the Zerglings. Zerglings are still 0-0 upgrades, now going into 1-1. Stephano establishing up another hatchery, halfway done on the queen, will be able to get up very heavy in terms of the overall production, getting about 30 larvae a minute. The Zerglings of Stephano seem to always be a little bit out of place, even though Stephano does still have a slight food advantage of about 8 right now. You can see a 3rd command center already being built, and perhaps it's going to try to establish this base off over here. There is a rich Vespene geyser, so rich Vespene geysers give you a lot more, or give you significantly more gas. The problem is that they do deplete much more quickly since they return more gas per trip. An Overlord still parked off over here. I do not believe that Polt has caught sight of this just quite yet. And with that, Stephano pretty much has a very good idea of what's going on inside his opponent's natural expansion. Marines, Marauders now making their way in. Zerglings going to get quickly taken down, and here comes the surround. The Zerglings finishing off many of these Marines here. A very nice medevac pickup. All of those units now attempting to run away. The Zerglings can just simply hide underneath and prevent any true prevent those medevacs from trying to save any of those units. Medevacs may be coming around the side for perhaps a drop into the main base. Currently, Stephano is running off of, I believe, only 1 gas right now. So his gasless build is somehow working, getting on a lot of Zerglings, but Polt has the food advantage once more. And now that he has a lot more medevacs in play, the medevacs should be able to keep this push going much longer and also make them much more deadly because of stim. Marines now making their way over, trying to prevent any of those Zerglings from being able to run away. Unable to do so, didn't really get in front of them, as we now see Marines and Marauders repositioning. Zerglings running straight into a group of Zerglings, or into a group of Marines and Marauders. Down they go once more, and now with 4 medevacs, it looks as though Polt is going to be in a very dangerous situation. especially as Stephano is going to continue to try to expand and not fall behind on bases. Zerglings still hanging around over here. Stephano 115, Polt versus 113. A third base from Polt should be landing off in just a moment, but there are Zerglings there, and the Zerglings will spot the group of Marines and that orbital command that's currently in the air. Stephano still even on in terms of food harvester count, 66 versus 53, with 10 more drones now being added. But Stephano choosing an awkward time to try to power drone now, as he may not be able to produce nearly the amount of units that he needs in order to fend off any additional attacks. Back over here, Zerglings going after the Marines. The Marines, even with Stim, just able to barely run away from those Zerglings here. You can see a couple siege tanks did try to get some kills off. The siege tanks are upgraded 0-0, no upgrades at all. Stephano with 1-1 upgrades, meaning that those siege tanks will need a 2-shot in order to kill off those Zerglings. Both of these players a little bit of a reprieve now, not engaging each other. Stephano closer to the maximum food count, so he may be timing this well. But then again, Polt does have a little bit more had more resources saved up in the bank, and doing a good job of making sure that Stephano does not run away with this series. Infestors of Stephano have now made their way down into the field. It looks as though they have enough for some fungal growths already, as we now have a drop coming in, or a run straight coming in here. One infestor now down. No fungal growth to try to prevent the escape of that medevac, and all of those units pretty much will be able to see the light of day once more. Medevac now returning all the way home. Nope, not returning all the way home, just sitting over here at this additional expansion that most likely will not get taken, as it's a little bit too close to your opponent's base if you're the Zerg player, and it's a little bit too far away from your own base if you are the Terran. Polt now up to 200 food compared to Stephano's 184. Stephano is still really cute with this Overlord here, has parked it off for quite some time, and still has not been scouted. Polt now mounting up a very, very strong counterattack. He has a fair amount of resources, but then again, so does Stephano. Stephano actually just only a couple minerals behind here, as we had now have an engagement. The Zerglings simply running by the Marines and the Marauders, not really able to get in anywhere, and now going to take down some of these siege tanks perhaps. Marines and Marauders are getting over there quickly, as we now have a large drop into the main base, but Stephano easily handles that. Another fungal growth, and all of those infested Terrans should be able to finish it there. There we go, as two drops have been easily dealt with. Zerglings on the front door have burrowed themselves. It looks like they can just take down the supply depots at a moment's notice if they want to. The siege tanks are upgraded 1-0 right now, and we'll see what's going to be happening. Zerglings now coming in from the back. Zerglings coming in from the front and the side, and trying to get a very decent surround here, but Polt in very good position. Siege tanks in the center and then Marines all over the place, was able to soften up and destroy many of those Zerglings before they got within melee range of the siege tanks. We'll see what's going to be happening next. Ultralisks are all ready to go. I do not believe there's a queen here. Nope, no queen here. The medevacs are pretty much going to have free reign on this base. More and more units still reinforcing here, and that's going to be rather difficult for Stephano. Stephano cannot afford to allow his opponent to take up another base, even though it isn't a full base. Zerglings, Ultralisks, and Marauders now going to go ahead and finish this off. It looks as though one Ultralisk does get taken down, but we see a large number of units once again just trying to press on that back door And here we go. Siege tanks, Marines, Marauders going up against Ultralisk. No Queen. The Marines are currently upgraded, what, 2-1. Able to deal still a lot of damage, and we'll see what's going to be happening here as the Infestor is now dropping some infested eggs straight up on top of these, or trying to get them up on the high ground here, but the Ultralisk are going to end up finishing all of those, all the early siege tanks, as we're still down to 4. Polt so far much better at controlling his losses. Let's take a look at what's going on here. One Zergling at the front door, a whole bunch of Zerglings at the front door here. So this expansion is not going to be able to be mined from, unless a scanner sweep or a Raven does reveal that Zergling, as a Zergling is in the perfect spot to prevent any building landing or building construction. Marines looking to finish off this hatchery once more. It looks as though it will be able to do exactly that. And now Stephano is on 3 bases. Stephano now mounting a counterattack. Will he be able to do that, as Polt is trying to land a command center here, but as he's landing it, it's going to buy time for these Marines and the siege tanks to really focus down much more of those units. More reinforcements still coming in, more Zerglings, as the siege tanks are melting away at the Crucio shock cannons. Those siege tanks dealing so much damage. 50 damage or 55 damage a pop now, especially with level 1 weapons upgrade. Polt now trying to chase after all these Marauders and Marines. Siege tanks did do a little bit of splash damage here, as the Marines are now making their way back in. We could perhaps see a fungal growth onto those Marines, as we now also have a 4th base ready to go for Polt whenever he decides to land it. Level 3 weapons upgrade now coming in for the siege tanks. Marines going after Infestors. Easy kill there. As we now see Polt attempting to do a drop back in the main base once more. Is it going to be enough? Perhaps dropping the units one at a time will prolong them to how much damage they take. One Marauder, dangerously low on hit points, still survives, as we are now seeing a very large counterattack coming over here. Hellion, or no Hellions, just siege tanks, Infestors, and Zerglings simply destroying Stephano's base off over here. The Zerglings, however, able to take care of the additional, or the main base drop, but there's not really much for Stephano left in the main base except for his production. No production buildings were taken out. All the hatcheries are still on the table, as we now see Zerglings look to finish off this planetary fortress. The planetary fortress will fall in a matter of seconds. There it goes. Zerglings are upgraded, a 3-3, dealing 8 damage per attack, or essentially 5 damage per attack when you account for all of that armor. The Marines will soon be upgraded 3-3 as well. Terran building armor on the planetary fortress, and also the armor on those turrets will definitely help, as the Zerglings were the real DPS source in this army. Still no pathogen glands coming in from Stephano. Meanwhile, Polt is now trying to hold his own, hold the line. Infestors are nowhere to be found. Oh, sorry, Infestors are off over here. Stephano needs to be very careful, as the siege tank's dropping in a lot of eggs, and the eggs of those infested Terrans are going to be able to destroy many of these siege tanks here. And now Stephano looks like he may be losing this battle here. More Marines, more siege tanks are reinforcing. Some medevacs now shot down as well, as the infested Terrans are all getting cleaned up. Stephano now down to 127 food. Polt taking a very nice 30 food advantage now, but will it capitalize into the win? A lot of infested Terrans were added, but no real fungal growths. It's really been a nice combination of the two, infested Terran plus fungal growths, as the fungal growth keeps the unit stationary, and the fungal growths and the infested Terrans are able to shoot them down. Infested Terrans have a very bad walk rate, so that's why that is important. Stephano still sitting on what I believe to be 5 bases now, compared to almost 5 bases for Polt. Polt still in a little bit of an economic issue, which means that he needs to win this game outright now before Stephano is able to catch back up. You can see that this base, no mining going on, only at the center location and the natural expansion do we have any more mining. Taking a look at the main base, there is still 1 mineral patch here, no more mineral patches here on the high ground, but more mineral patches here and here. Let's see what's going to happen now as the Marines, and a nice fungal growth does go down, but does he have enough fungal growth to really even out this war? The Marines and the Marauders just simply attacking and going to be pushing into this third base or fourth base here, and it looks like it will get destroyed pretty much unanswered. Infestors are all arriving to the party, but some of them don't get off all of their fungal growths like they would like to, and now Stephano says congrats. So congratulations on the win. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for Game 3.